My name is Emily. If you had met me a year ago, you would have said I was one of the luckiest women alive. I had a beautiful home, a promising career, and most importantly, a husband I believed adored me, Daniel. We had been married for 7 years, and I thought we were a team, partners in everything. But I learned the hard way that love can sometimes blind you to the truth. I still remember the day it all started when the first cracks in our perfect life appeared. It was late afternoon, the golden sun slipping through our living room curtains. I was curled up on the sofa with my laptop, going through some work emails, while Daniel came home looking strangely distracted. He kissed my forehead, but it felt rushed, mechanical. "Long day?" I asked, watching him loosen his tie. "Yeah," he muttered, tossing his jacket carelessly on the chair. "Just tired. Don't ask too many questions tonight, That was unusual. Normally, Daniel couldn't wait to tell me about his day. He was a lawyer, sharp and witty, and he loved reliving courtroom victories with me. But that night, his eyes avoided mine. Something about his body language gnawed at me. I shrugged it off, though. I told myself maybe he really is just tired. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered, "No, something's wrong." Over the next few weeks, Daniel's behavior shifted in ways I couldn't ignore. He stayed late at the office more often, came home smelling faintly of expensive perfume I didn't own, and kept his phone glued to him as if it were a lifeline. I tried to reason with myself. "Emily, you're overthinking. He's just stressed." But the knot in my stomach tightened each time I caught him texting in the bathroom or stepping outside to take late-night calls. One Saturday morning, as I was making breakfast, his phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it, an instinct, nothing more. But what I saw made my heart jolt. The message read, "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." My hand trembled. Before I could unlock it, Daniel swooped in, snatching the phone with a forced smile. "Work stuff," he said casually, sliding it into his pocket. I stared at him, trying to keep my voice steady. "Since when does your work text you like that?" He froze for just a second, then forced a laugh. "Relax, It's a joke between colleagues. Don't make it a big deal." But his eyes betrayed him. They were defensive, cornered. And in that moment, my world tilted. That night, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. My chest felt heavy, my thoughts circling like vultures. Was he cheating on me? The man who had once promised to love and protect me, the man who whispered dreams of growing old together. Was he betraying me behind my back? I wanted to confront him outright, demand the truth. But some part of me hesitated. Maybe I wasn't ready to hear the answer. Maybe I needed proof before my heart could shatter completely. So I made a choice. I would watch. I would wait. I would find out what Daniel was hiding. The following week, I carefully observed him. I noticed the subtle lies he sprinkled into his routine. He claimed he was working late on Wednesday, but when I checked with his office, his secretary told me he'd left hours earlier. On Friday, he said he was having drinks with colleagues, but his credit card statement showed a charge at a luxury hotel bar. Each discovery was like a dagger twisting deeper into me. Yet I said nothing. Instead, I played the dutiful wife, smiling, cooking his favorite meals, acting as though nothing was wrong. Inside, though, I was a storm brewing. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, I asked, "Daniel, do you think people can really hide their true selves forever?" He looked up, startled. "What's that supposed to mean?" I forced a smile, twirling my fork. "Just a thought. Sometimes I wonder if people wear masks, pretending to be someone they're not. Eventually, the mask slips." He chuckled, but it sounded hollow. "You've been watching too many crime dramas, But I saw the flicker of unease in his eyes. The turning point came a week later, when I decided to follow him. He had told me he was attending a late client meeting downtown. Instead of staying home, I got into my car and tailed him, my heart pounding with every mile. He didn't drive to the office. He didn't even head toward the courthouse. No, he pulled into the parking lot of a 5-star hotel. I parked a safe distance away, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Minutes later, I watched as he stepped out of the car, smiling, relaxed, and met a woman waiting for him at the entrance. She was tall, glamorous, with cascading blonde hair and a dress that clung to her figure. And then, as if to carve the betrayal into my heart, I watched my husband lean in and kiss her. Time seemed to stop. My breath hitched, my chest burned, and tears blurred my vision. That kiss was more than a kiss. It was the confirmation of everything I had feared. I wanted to scream, to run out and slap him, to demand answers. But I didn't. Instead, I sank lower into my seat, hiding in the shadows, silently crumbling as my world fell apart. When I returned home that night, I looked around our house, the framed wedding photos on the wall, the cozy couch we once cuddled on, the kitchen where we'd cooked countless meals together. Everything suddenly felt like a cruel joke. How long had he been playing me? How long had he been lying, smiling to my face while giving his heart to someone else? I stared at myself in the mirror, wiping away mascara-streaked tears. My reflection whispered the painful truth. Emily, your marriage is a lie. But beneath the heartbreak, something else stirred. A spark. A dangerous, determined spark. If Daniel thought he could play games with my heart, he was gravely mistaken. Because I had decided I would not be the broken wife who silently endured betrayal. No, I would be the storm that shattered his world. And my revenge would silence him for good. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, it's time to play my own game. After that night, something inside me shifted. I was no longer just a wife, no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a woman preparing for war. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't act out of pure emotion. Rage and tears wouldn't get me the justice I wanted. If I was going to take Daniel down, I had to be smart, calculated, patient. So I began building my plan. For the next few weeks, I played the role of the loving wife flawlessly. I laughed at his jokes, packed his lunches, kissed him goodbye in the mornings. I even made him his favorite pasta one night, just to keep up the illusion that I was blissfully unaware. But behind that mask, I was collecting evidence. I went through his credit card statements, noting the frequent charges at the same hotel. I checked his work calendar against his actual movements and found lie after lie. When he left his phone unattended for just a moment, I quickly snapped photos of his messages with her. They were filled with promises, inside jokes, and even talk of our future together. Each screenshot burned into me, but instead of breaking me, it hardened me. I needed to know who she was. So one evening, while Daniel was supposedly working late, I decided to visit that hotel myself. I dressed in plain clothes, tied my hair back, and walked in as though I belonged. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my eyes sharp. And there she was, the blonde woman. She sat at the bar, sipping wine, scrolling through her phone. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something smug in the way she carried herself, like she knew she was stealing something precious and enjoyed it. I sat a few seats away, pretending to be lost in my own world, but my ears were wide open. Not long after, Daniel arrived. He slid into the seat beside her, kissed her cheek, and whispered something that made her laugh. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. It took everything in me not to march over and expose them right there. But no, that would be too easy. Too simple. I wanted him to feel what I had felt, to lose everything the way I was losing him. Later that night, when Daniel came home smelling faintly of her perfume, I pretended to be asleep. He climbed into bed beside me, his arm brushing against mine. I lay there silently, staring into the darkness, thinking, you think you're clever, Daniel, but you've just started a game you can't win. The next morning, over breakfast, I casually asked, hey Dan, do you remember when we talked about buying that lake house someday? The one we dreamed about after our wedding? He looked up, surprised. Of course. Why? I smiled sweetly. I've been thinking, maybe it's time we really start planning for the future, putting our finances together, making some investments. His expression shifted ever so slightly, hesitation, maybe even guilt. But he nodded. Yeah, sure. We'll talk about it soon. Inside, I almost laughed. He had no idea that while he was building a future with her, I was preparing to dismantle his entire life. I started visiting a divorce attorney discreetly. I wanted to know my options, how much power I truly had. To my relief, the lawyer told me that with Daniel's income, our joint assets, and especially with proof of infidelity, I would be entitled to more than half of everything. But I didn't want just money. I wanted him humiliated, stripped of dignity, left with nothing but the consequences of his lies. As the days passed, Daniel grew bolder in his affair. He'd leave earlier in the mornings, return later at night, and sometimes not at all. He fed me flimsy excuses, but I nodded and smiled, playing the role of the trusting wife. Until one night, I decided to test him. I dressed up in a sleek black dress, did my makeup perfectly, and told him I was going out for a girls' night. He barely reacted, just mumbled, "Have fun." But what he didn't know was that I wasn't meeting friends. I was following him. I parked a block away from the hotel and walked inside, my heels clicking against the marble floor. And there they were, sitting at a corner table, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. He was holding her hand across the table, his eyes glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. It hurt. God, it hurt more than I can explain. But I held my head high because soon he would be the one in pain. The woman leaned closer to him and whispered something, making him grin. Then, in a voice loud enough for me to hear, she said, "When are you going to finally leave her?" "You promised me, Daniel." My stomach twisted. So, she knew about me. She knew he was married, and still, she was plotting with him. That made her just as guilty as him, maybe even worse. Daniel chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just need more time. You know how complicated things are." Complicated? He was stringing her along, just like he had been stringing me. I wanted to walk over, slam the divorce papers on the table, and expose him right then and there. But I stopped myself. Not yet. The timing had to be perfect. When I got home that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in silence. I thought about the years I'd given him, the sacrifices, the love, the loyalty. And for what? For him to toss me aside like yesterday's news? No, he wasn't going to discard me so easily. I was going to make sure that when I was done with him, he'd regret ever playing dangerous games with my heart. The next morning, I put the first real step of my plan into action. While Daniel showered, I slipped into his study and found his briefcase. Inside were important documents, case files, and jackpot, his personal journal where he scribbled notes about clients and meetings. I photographed every page. Some of those notes contained sensitive details that could ruin his career if they fell into the wrong hands. I tucked everything back neatly before he came downstairs, my heart racing with adrenaline. As he kissed me goodbye and walked out the door, I whispered under my breath, "Tick, tock, Daniel. Your time is running out." That night, when his phone buzzed with a message from her, I read the preview across the screen. I can't wait until she's out of the picture for good. And for the first time, I realized they weren't just having an affair. They were planning something far more dangerous. I froze when I read those words on his phone. I can't wait until she's out of the picture for good. My pulse thundered in my ears. Out of the picture? Did she mean me? Was this just careless wording between two reckless lovers? Or was there something more sinister hiding behind those words? I stared at Daniel that night as he slept beside me, his chest rising and falling peacefully, as though he hadn't just betrayed every vow he'd ever made. I studied his face, wondering how someone could look so innocent and yet harbor so much deceit. And in that moment, the betrayal deepened. It wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a threat. The next morning, I tried to act normal, but inside, my mind was racing. I replayed that message over and over, analyzing every possibility. Was she pressuring him to divorce me? Was she pushing him to cut me off completely, financially and emotionally? Or was she planning something darker? The thought chilled me. That evening, when Daniel left for another late-night meeting, I decided to investigate further. My hands shook as I carefully unlocked his laptop. He had grown careless with his passwords lately. And what I found made my stomach drop. Emails. Dozens of them. Between Daniel and this woman, her name was Vanessa. In them, they spoke of their future together, but buried within the flirtatious exchanges were subtle references to me. "She suspects something," he had written in one. "I don't care," Vanessa replied. "She's in the way." Handle it, Daniel. Handle it. Two words that haunted me. I snapped photos of everything, my hands trembling, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or laugh at the absurdity of it all. The man I had shared my life with, the man I trusted, was plotting to erase me. But the fear quickly turned into fuel. They wanted me gone? Fine. But first, I would burn their little fantasy world to the ground. The next day, I followed Daniel again. He didn't go to work. He met Vanessa in a quiet cafe downtown. I sat a few tables away, disguised with sunglasses and a scarf. Their conversation was hushed, but I caught fragments. She's starting to ask questions. We need to be careful. Once everything's settled, it'll just be us. Vanessa leaned forward, her manicured fingers brushing Daniel's hand. Promise me, Dan. Promise me she won't be in our way much longer. And then, like a fool, he said it. I promise. My blood ran cold. I had heard enough. That night, I confronted him, carefully. I needed to test him, to see how far he would go with his lies. As he poured himself a drink, I asked casually, Daniel, do you ever think about what life would be like if we weren't together? He froze for a second, then forced a laugh. Why would you ask that? Oh, no reason, I said, smiling. Just, sometimes I wonder what people would do if they didn't have their partners anymore. If they'd feel free. Or lost. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. But he quickly shrugged it off. You've been watching too many dramas again. He kissed my cheek and walked away, but I stood there in silence, knowing deep down that he was lying straight to my face. Over the next week, I crafted my plan more carefully than ever. Step 1. I visited my attorney again and began discreetly transferring certain assets into accounts Daniel couldn't touch. If he thought he could toss me aside and still walk away rich, he had another thing coming. Step 2. I installed a small recording device in his car. If they were planning anything against me, I wanted proof, and I wanted it to come from his own mouth. Step 3. I began pretending to be more oblivious than ever. I played the doting wife, even suggesting we take a vacation together soon. He smiled and agreed, though I could see the discomfort in his eyes. The mask I wore grew heavier, but I refused to let it slip. One evening, while checking the recordings from his car, I finally caught the smoking gun. He and Vanessa were driving together, their voices clear through the tiny device. Vanessa, she's too smart, Daniel. She's going to figure everything out. Daniel, I told you, I'll take care of it. Just stop worrying. Vanessa, when? I can't stand waiting around. I need you, Dan. I need you free of her. Daniel, soon. Trust me. She won't be a problem much longer. I stopped the playback, my hands trembling. It was undeniable now. They weren't just talking about love. They were talking about eliminating me. I sat in the dark, listening to my own heartbeat pound like a drum, and whispered to myself, all right then. If that's the game you want to play, Daniel, then let's play. The next morning, I woke up earlier than him, stood in front of the mirror, and studied my reflection. My eyes were no longer soft, naive, or trusting. They were sharp, burning with determination. I whispered, you tried to break me. Now watch me destroy you. I started laying traps. I made subtle changes in our finances, shifting money, leaving traces that would later make it look like he had been embezzling. I reached out to one of his professional rivals, pretending to seek advice, and casually dropped hints about Daniel's unethical behavior. I began setting the stage for his downfall, all while he continued to smile at me, kiss my cheek, and walk out the door, thinking I was still his fool. But I wasn't the fool anymore. The fool was him for underestimating me. That Friday evening, as he got dressed to work late, I asked, do you love me, Daniel? He paused, adjusting his tie, clearly caught off guard. Of course I do, Why would you even ask that? I held his gaze for a long moment, searching his face, then smiled sweetly. Just wondering. He kissed me quickly and left. And the second the door shut, my smile vanished. Because I already knew the truth. And soon, so would everyone else. The next time I followed him, I didn't just watch from afar. This time, I walked into the hotel lobby, heels clicking, head held high, ready to make my presence known. My heart pounded like a drum as I stepped into the hotel lobby. For weeks I had been hiding in the shadows, quietly collecting evidence, letting them believe I was blind to their betrayal. But that night, I was done hiding. The chandelier above spilled golden light across the marble floor as I walked toward the bar, my heels echoing with deliberate confidence. I spotted them instantly, Daniel and Vanessa, tucked away at their usual corner table, laughing as though they hadn't just been plotting to erase me from their lives. For a moment, I simply watched them. He touched her hand across the table, his eyes glowing with a tenderness I hadn't seen directed at me in years. It stung, yes, but more than that, It fueled me. I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and walked right up to their table. Daniel. My voice was calm, steady. His head snapped up, and his face drained of color. Emily, what are you doing here? Vanessa turned, giving me a slow, mocking smile. So, you're the wife. I forced a polite smile at her. And you must be the distraction. The silence that followed was suffocating. Daniel stammered, Emily, this isn't what it looks like. Oh, Daniel. I cut him off, my voice dripping with venom. It's exactly what it looks like. And more. I placed my phone on the table and pressed play. The recording of their car conversation filled the air. She's too smart, Daniel. She's going to figure everything out. I told you, I'll take care of it. Just stop worrying. When? I can't stand waiting around. I need you, Dan. I need you free of her. Soon. Trust me. She won't be a problem much longer. Vanessa's smirk vanished. Daniel's face turned pale. Do you hear yourselves? I hissed, leaning in. Plotting against me? Talking about when I'll no longer be a problem? Daniel reached for the phone, but I snatched it back. No, darling. This isn't going away. People around us were beginning to stare, but I didn't care. Let them. Let the whole world witness his humiliation. Without another word, I turned and walked out, leaving them stunned in the middle of the bar. My chest heaved with adrenaline, my hands trembling, but I didn't let myself break. Not yet. That night, Daniel came home late, his face etched with fury. How dare you embarrass me like that? He snapped, slamming the door shut. I stood calmly in the living room, arms crossed. Embarrass you? You humiliated yourself, Daniel. You've been lying, cheating, and plotting behind my back. I just made sure you couldn't hide anymore. His jaw clenched, his fists tightening. For the first time, I saw a side of him that truly frightened me, a cold, dangerous anger. You're making a mistake, Emily, he growled. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. I met his glare with steady eyes. No, Daniel. You don't know what you've gotten yourself into. The days that followed were tense, suffocating. Daniel tried to carry on as if nothing had happened, but the cracks were impossible to ignore. He avoided my eyes, barked at me over small things, and spent even more nights away. But I wasn't idle. I was carefully preparing the next stage of my plan. I gathered all the evidence, screenshots, recordings, emails, and compiled them into a neat folder for my attorney. I even printed copies, locking them in a safe deposit box just in case. Then I began subtly planting seeds in Daniel's professional world. An anonymous tip sent to the ethics board detailing his questionable behavior. A whispered rumor at a legal networking event. A carefully timed leak of certain financial irregularities. Slowly but surely, his perfect reputation began to crumble. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances at home. I smiled when he walked through the door, cooked dinner as though everything was normal. But inside, I was waiting for the right moment, the moment to strike and leave him with nothing. That moment came sooner than I expected. One evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, Daniel stepped into the kitchen, his face unreadable. We need to talk, he said. I dried my hands and leaned against the counter. Go ahead. He hesitated, then sighed. Emily, I think it's best if we end this marriage. It's not working anymore. I let out a hollow laugh. End this marriage? After everything you've done, you think you get to end it on your terms? He looked uncomfortable, running a hand through his hair. I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. I'm not heartless. The audacity made me laugh even harder. Not heartless? Daniel, you've been cheating on me, lying to me, and plotting with your mistress to get rid of me. And you think I should be grateful for a payout? His eyes widened. You don't understand. No, I cut him off. You don't understand. I'm not the weak, knave wife you thought I was. I'm not walking away quietly. And when I'm done, Daniel, you'll wish you'd never underestimated me. The silence between us was thick, dangerous. Then, without another word, he stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with possibilities, with the looming sense that something was about to break. I kept hearing Vanessa's voice in that recording, her desperate plea, I need you free of her. What if they weren't just planning to leave me? What if their plan was darker? I couldn't take the risk. So I called my attorney the next morning and told him to move forward with filing the divorce papers immediately. I wanted Daniel served before he even saw it coming. A week later, it happened. Daniel was at his office when a process server walked in and handed him the papers. My attorney called me afterward, amused. He didn't take it well. Stormed out of the office in a rage. I almost smiled. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control. But my victory was short-lived. That evening, Daniel came home looking like a man unhinged. His eyes were wild, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you've won, Emily? You think you can ruin me?" He stepped closer, so close I could feel his breath on my face. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." A chill ran down my spine. And for the first time, I wondered, was I in actual danger? That night, I locked the bedroom door and lay awake, staring into the darkness, knowing one terrifying truth. Daniel wasn't just a cheating husband anymore. He was a man with nothing to lose. That night, as I lay in bed with the door locked, my heart wouldn't stop racing. Every creak in the house made me flinch. I couldn't shake Daniel's words from earlier. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." For years, I had trusted him with my life. Now, I wasn't sure if I was safe under the same roof. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to wait around to see what he might do. It was time to end this game once and for all. I spent the next few days tying up every loose end. I gave my attorney full access to all the evidence I had collected. I made sure my accounts were secure, assets protected, and my story airtight. But I also took one final, dangerous step. I scheduled a private meeting with Vanessa. Yes, her. I had found out where she worked through one of the emails. She was an event planner at a high-end firm downtown. So I called, introduced myself under a fake name, and scheduled a consultation. When I walked into her office, she nearly choked on her coffee. "You?" she hissed. "Me," I said calmly, shutting the door behind me. "Relax. I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk." She folded her arms, glaring. "What could you possibly have to say to me?" I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. "Daniel has been lying to you just as much as he's been lying to me. He's promised you a future, but trust me, he'll never give it to you. You're just another pawn in his little game." Her eyes flickered with doubt. I pressed on. "You think you're the first? You're not. And you won't be the last. But you will be the one left with nothing when I'm done with him." Vanessa shifted uncomfortably, her confidence slipping. "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and slid it across the desk. "Listen." The recording of Daniel's voice filled the room. "I'll take care of it. She won't be a problem much longer." Vanessa's face went pale. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, not of me, but of him. "You see?" I said softly. "He's dangerous. He would have thrown you away just like he tried to throw me away. You can either stay loyal to him and go down with him, or you can walk away now and save yourself." Silence stretched between us. Finally, Vanessa whispered, "What do you want from me?" I smiled. "Nothing. Just stay out of my way." And with that, I walked out, leaving her shaken in her own office. That night, Daniel confronted me again. "You met with her," he said through gritted teeth. I didn't even bother pretending. "Yes, I did." His jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. "Do you realize what you've done? You've ruined everything." I stepped closer, meeting his glare without flinching. "No, Daniel. You ruined everything. I just made sure the world would see it." He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, there was a knock at the door. 2 men in suits stood there, officers from the ethics board. They had come to question him about his misconduct. Daniel's face turned ghostly white. As they led him away, he shot me a look of pure hatred. "This isn't over, Emily," he shouted. But deep down, I knew it was. The next few weeks were chaos for him. Investigations into his practice. Clients pulling away. Vanessa distancing herself completely. She even sent me an email, apologizing for everything and saying she wanted nothing more to do with him. The mighty Daniel, once so confident and untouchable, was now crumbling piece by piece. And me? I finally felt free. The divorce was brutal for him, but seamless for me. With the mountain of evidence I had gathered, the court ruled heavily in my favor. I walked away with the house, the assets, and more than enough financial security to rebuild my life. Daniel, on the other hand, lost everything. His career, his mistress, his money, his reputation. I heard through a friend that he moved into a shabby apartment across town, living paycheck to paycheck from whatever odd jobs he could find. And though part of me pitied the man I once loved, a bigger part of me thought, he deserves every bit of it. One evening, months later, I sat on the porch of my home, sipping wine as the sun dipped below the horizon. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I thought about the girl I used to be, the knave wife who believed love could conquer all. And I thought about the woman I had become, the woman who had taken her pain and turned it into power. Daniel had played dangerous games with my heart, but in the end, my revenge had silenced him for good. I raised my glass to the fading sun and whispered, "Checkmate, Daniel."